Hello, welcome to Cardboard and Plastic. Today's video, I have a couple cards I got in the mail. I want to go over those. And I pulled out some cards from the 80s that I just want to show off and talk a little bit about some of the grading, that nonsense that's been going on. It's unfortunate, but it's a reality in our hobby right now that collectors have to be more educated because the grading companies are just making mistake after mistake. Or not only are they making the mistake, but the companies that are selling the cards, knowing that it's a mistake, are not doing their job as well for us, the collecting community. So I'll get into that. Got a bunch of cards. I have to go a little bit quicker. I don't want to turn this into a double D 3-hour marathon. So let's get going with this. So in the background, I've been getting the Paul Goldschmidt, trying to put my rainbow together for his 2011 Topps update. I have the Cognac, Walmart Blue, the Diamond, and I like the Target Red. I just can't afford. There's also Canary. The Canary Diamond out of 60. There's a couple of like black 60s for that card on eBay right now. And for $2,000, I could get one. And I'm not going to spend that much. Even the Walmart Red for like $300. I'm like, no. So I've been watching the Topps Gold for a while. And there was one that was kind of beat up for $100. And then there was one that was like looked perfect. And it was also $100, but it was sitting there. Typically, they go for $80. So I just said, I'll offer $80. And they accepted. And there it is. So another one added. By the way, I mean, this card is gorgeous. Centering, everything. But it's probably fake, right? Because it's not in a PSA case. I got these Mag Pros. My wife's on a trip right now, so I'm waiting for her to get back so she can use her Cricut machine to cut out the labels. So I got ready for those. Oh, by the way, with the number, they are numbered out of 2011. Oh, look at that number. Actually, if we go upside down, let's cover that up. All right. eBay 101. So, another card that I got in the mail was a mistake. So for my Rick Smith's PC, I use the trading card database to organize my collection. And this is a card that popped up. That's a pretty rare card. And I really don't collect the rarer cards unless I get a great deal for his modern like stuff, right? So they have like the sticker auto 101s, and I'll pay $20, $30 for it, but I won't pay $100 for it. But I will pay up for some of his rarer stuff. And this card is not really rare, but I needed it. So I bid up to like $40. And I got this in the mail today. This is the Flair Showcase, the Legacy Collection. These are numbered out of 99 for this year. And with my Rick Smith's PC, go to the back here, right? They couple of like games, rebound leaders. He's actually number 2 all time for rebounds behind Dale Davis, and actually number 2 behind only Reggie Miller for the NBA points for the Pacers, even ahead of Jermaine O'Neal. So awesome card. And the problem though is I won the card in the auction. I was like, wait, it looks familiar. And of course, I went into my collection. I marked the wrong Flair Showcase off, and now I have 2. And for right now, I'm just going to keep them. But there's like a few that I have, like out of 100, I have like 5 of them. So, you know, if I ever want to sell it, I can sell it. Those actually go pretty quickly. The Flair Showcases, there's a lot of people trying to put those like sets together. It's the 90s basketball collectors. They're serious. And they make some of the cards that I won of Rick Smith's unaffordable They have like the credentials, the rubies, things that I just can't afford. I'm not going to spend $5,000 on one of those cards. So I pulled out some cards from the 80s. I'm just going to go through these. Cal Ripken, I brought out some of his rookies, but I didn't bring out one of his rookies because I think it's the ugliest one, and it's the one that's on the PSA registry, is his regular Topps card. I do have it in a PSA slab, but a lot of these I graded myself back years ago with PSA, so I got his Donruss, and these cards, I mean, I never had a complaint with PSA. They did a good job. I only went to CGC, CSG because of the price and the turnaround time. I mean, I was getting cards like this slab for $8. You know, and the thing is I like the frame, right? And this is like a couple of things, though, where a lot of people, like, they try to make excuses of, like, why they need to grade, right? One of it is like, oh, I need to make sure that my card is authentic. Your card is authentic. Unless you bought, like, on Facebook, a Mickey Mantle, a Hank Aaron, a Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig. Like, your card is probably real. The condition of the card, well, that you can make a case for that, right? That you want to make sure that you're buying a card, you want an approximate condition. That's fine. By the way, PSA can't tell the difference between 9 and 10s. That's a fact. I'll get into that a little bit later. And do not say that these things protect your cards. All these cards I've graded in the last few years, these things have been sitting in top loaders. They've been sitting in penny sleeves, right? These things, a penny sleeve with a top loader, that protects your card. Just fine, right? But it's a beautiful frame. And a lot of these cards, right, I just like to see in these frames. So that is the card for Cal Ripken. I don't care, right? Back in the day, they actually even had like rookie cards, XRCs, right? I prefer an XRC over anything, right? I hate that whole Michael Jordan debate of like his rookie card versus his XRC. Of course you want the XRC. I want the XRC of Kirby Puckett, right? His 1984 Fleer update. Like, that's the card to get for Kirby Puckett, right? So that is Cal Ripken's best card, in my opinion. The pose, the colors, it is a great card. And there's no need. I know it's not centered perfectly. It got a decent grade, but, you know, that card for me, it's going to go on a wall. That's perfect. I got it for like $40 for the ungraded, and I graded it, right? So, awesome card. Speaking of Ripken, I'm just going to go all over the place right here. This is the Bill Ripken, the F-Face. This is actually not my card. That's my wife's. And actually, I was looking on ComC, and I got this for $1. And this is not the black box. This is the black scribble. It has a ding corner, but for $1, this is great. I'm going to put this in a Mag Pro. I'm going to try to get the different versions of this, right? The white scribble. And the saw cut, I don't like. A lot of people do those after the fact. That doesn't interest me. But over here, I got a stack of all the same card. Now, a lot of people don't realize Bill Ripken, right, had the error. But also there was a rookie card of a Hall of Famer that had multiple errors, and I don't understand how this card isn't more popular. This is the Randy Johnson, and they have like a cigarette ad with the Marlboro cigarettes. I don't think you can see, this one is like a different version of it, but the ad itself, they didn't want. And so just like the F-Face, they try to cover it up in many, many different ways. And all of these cards that I have, they try to cover up in a different way, right? So this one, I think it's like the black scribble. And they actually have people that collect all of these. They don't show up well on camera because of the glare. you could kind of make out the ad there. I have these in sleeves there, so a little oil from my hand got there. So all of these are like boxes, different variations of the ad. Some you could see better than others. I'm still waiting to get a really nice clear ad. Some of there's like 3 or 4 copies that I know of. You could see the ad perfectly in the background, and those cards are super expensive and collectible. So yeah, I had a little collection of those, got those together. You know, and when grading was like $10, $12, send those away. Awesome. Now for like $25, like I'm not going to deal with that. So let's go over, we're going to jump around. Speaking of trusting PSA, right? We had the news come out with, what was that? Golden was selling the Joe DiMaggio play ball with somebody put an autograph on it that wasn't Joe DiMaggio, and they kind of ignored it, just gave it a grade of 3. And then they had the Hank Aaron Lake to Lake, which is a great card. If I ever get that one, I'm getting the staple hole there. That's how it was meant to be. It was stapled to the milk carton. But that was a reprint. And, you know, PSA is to blame, right, for this. It's not, we pay them a lot of money, right? Pay them $150 for the price of those cards, right? I mean, we give them like 10%, 20% of the value of the cards to grade them. And then I call BS on like all the people that really like have PSA collections. They defend them. And I guess if I had a lot of money in PSA, and I have some money in PSA, I don't defend them. They make errors, and they will continue to make errors, but they don't have 3, 4, 5 people through the process looking at these cards. They, even for these $150 service levels, they're spending 30 seconds on these cards, right? With that Joe DiMaggio, that Hank Aaron, if there was 2 experienced graders, that wouldn't have ever slipped through, right? One person looked at, by the way, they also have to categorize the card, right? Do the inventory, authenticate it. So like many people touched, right? Supposedly touched that card through the process, but they're not looking at the card. It's just trying to get 2 million graded cards out the door every month, right? That's the goal of these grading companies, right? It's the volume. And if you're 95% good, that's good enough, right? Because 5% people won't care. And really, I mean, a lot of people just crack and resubmit anyway, right? And some of these big error cards, right? PSA will cover their tracks. They'll do certify. They did that with the Joe DiMaggio. They didn't do that yet with the Hank Aaron. I'm surprised not. But now that it's brought attention, PSA will quietly just deactivate that cert number. And the person that bought the Hank Aaron on the Probstein, by the way, the grading companies, right, are at fault. But what is more disgusting and nobody's talking about is Golden and Probstein knowingly selling those cards to try to make a commission. Even people say, well, they're being transparent about it. They shouldn't be selling that card in the first place, right? They know that it is not labeled correctly. And by them selling the card, trying to make money, that it shows you what they care about the hobby. They don't care about you as the collector. They want to make commissions in a very unethical way, right? So, yeah, am I going to look at Probstein auctions now? No. Am I going to look at Golden auction? I don't like auction houses. I had like the buyer's premium. That just turns me off. I just buy from sellers on eBay. And most people are honest. More honest than Probstein, I'll tell you that. And these are cards like, so you got to be careful, right? You have to be an expert now, right? Like these companies should be experts, but I've seen so many mislabeled. By the way, this is correct, right? This is a Tiffany, this is a regular, but these are the 1987 Topps Traded, and the Topps Traded, the backs look very similar, right? There's a couple of differences if you know what you're looking for, but really, the Topps Traded has a different back than the regular Topps, and it looks very similar to the Topps Tiffany. So you got to be really careful with those Tiffany cards. You can't believe what PSA says on a lot of those. I've seen so many mistakes. Another card that I've seen a lot of mistakes on is another player that I love to collect from the 80s, but this is actually a 90s card, so I'm breaking my rule here. This is the Darryl Strawberry, the Desert Shield. These things were so heavily faked. I study these a lot. I talk to people that actually go through these, the stamps for the Desert Shield. There's very obvious tells on real and fake stamps, right? So the people that know this stuff, they won't get tricked. But there are dozens of examples of fake Desert Shields stamps in these slabs. And it should not be hard. These people should be experts. We're paying them a lot of money. If they can't tell the difference between a Desert Shield, a fake one, and a real one, and I can, that is just wrong, right? I mean, we should be getting expert opinions. We shouldn't have to be the experts. By the way, be very careful if you ever want to buy the Jeff Bagwell Desert Shield. I wouldn't touch that, honestly, unless I touched a card and looked at it myself. All right, let's just show some cards here. I just pulled some of these out. Some of my favorite. I have every single Tony Gwynn rookie. This one is my favorite, though, even though has the lowest grade of all of them. Trying to find centered O-Pee-Chees or even close to this centering, almost impossible. That is an awesome card. I prefer the O-Pee-Chees over the Topps. Couple of big cards from when I was a kid. This is one here. By the way, this is not a 9 anymore. This is a new PSA 8. The centering top to bottom doesn't meet the requirements. Now, a lot of people said, it's 5%. It's not a big deal. It wasn't 5%. It was 5% left, 5% right, or 5% top, 5% bottom. 5% each side is 10%, right? So it's really a 10% difference, their new grading standard, right? So that is, right? If I send it in, though, to them, they would put it into, right? If this was like an old slab, right? Not a lighthouse label, but this is still their slab. But if this was an older cert number, had a 9, they would throw it into a brand new slab, no problem. Because they want to pay the difference between the two. What else do we got here? Oh, with Darryl Strawberry. One of my favorite cards. I graded a bunch of these with CGC. Actually, I had another 9.5. I kept one of them. They're both the same. But those are I had 2 out of the 3 top pops for that one. CGC, CSG, they grade the 80s very fairly. But pretty harshly. I mean, that card would be a 9 or a 10 in PSA. Or a 7, depending on who grades it. Or if they damage the card, a 5. I graded so many of these Mattingly's. I got these from people in lots of 10 to 20. I must have graded like 50 of these. And I got like all 8s and 9s from PSA. And I sold every single one of them. Made a lot of money. I sold like between like $40 to $100 for every single one of the cards graded. And I got those for like $10. And that's the one I kept because that's the one that my dad bought for me. And I kept it my childhood. And the one card I couldn't afford when I was younger, I actually had to buy that. So there's a bunch of cards from the 80s that I just had to buy when I got back into the hobby. So, got that. Kirby Puckett. I showed you the Fleer. But I love, you know, I used to love to grade cards and buy raw to grade because the companies were fair. I sent like 50 of those in, right? And depending on the grader, it was either an 8 or a 9 because all the cards were the same. They were between like somewhere between an 8 or a 9. And PSA always gave me 8s or 9s. Recently, though, like I'm sending in the same exact cards and I might get a 9, but then I'm getting like 5s and 6s. And like sometimes like the 5s or 6s, like they damage the card. Like it's not as fun. This one, I had to try to find a nice, these things are just tough to grade, but I had to have the leaf with the Donruss. Another card, well, this is from the 90s. This is like one of the cards growing up there. And this is the only one I kept. I graded dozens of those. Half of the ones that I graded, I bought all of them from eBay. And I got tons of 10s on those things. And I was selling the 10s for like $500 a piece. PSA made me a lot of money that I just put back into cards. Bought more and more. One of my favorite pictures growing up. Before that, this is another, like these are, I gotta get the Jose Canseco for that Topps traded. I don't know why I don't have that one. I have the Will Clark. I need the Jose Canseco. I need the Bo Jackson. Why don't I have those cards? I gotta go to ComC. Dwight Gooden, one of my favorite players growing up. So this is the Fleer update. I want to try to get a better version, a little bit more centered. It's a sharp card, but got his Topps traded. And this is actually probably one of his rarest type cards. So this is the 1985 Donruss, the box panels, the hand cutout one. And this card, it got a 5. And this is kind of like the frustration with like PSA now. And, well, I'm going to kind of do like Mookie gets the cards with the pinholes there and tells the story about the creases. I'm going to tell a story of like what I think happened with this card. So they got the box panel, the hand cut card at PSA. And Joe never even graded a hand cut card before. And he kind of looked at the card and kind of like, how do I grade these hand cut cards? And then he like yelled across the room to Frank. I don't even know names, I'm telling you. Probably use the same name over again. But yeah, two guys, they're talking about like, how should I grade this card? And they're like, I don't know how to grade those hand cut cards. It looks good. And just give it a 5. I think that's good, right? Just give it right in the middle. I think that's how they graded my stamp too. They never graded a stamp before. And they're like, how do you grade a stamp? Like, I don't know. Just give it a 5. Kind of joking about that, but I don't know. That is not a 5. There's no creases on it. The surface is perfect. I don't know what they're looking for. Like maybe it wasn't cut. It's a hand cut card, right? Maybe was it not cut perfect for them, right? Are they grading the hand cut part? I don't know. And the last card I want to show you, and this is, again, a little bit outside of the 80s by 1 year. And this is kind of where I'm going with my collecting. This is the 1979 Topps Ozzie Smith, and I actually bought this in an 8. I graded tons of them, and I just wasn't happy with them. I got tons of 7s. I got like 6 and 7s with PSA, CGC, and I sold like almost all of them. And this one popped up on ComC for $200. And I just bought it. And now this card is, I mean, I could probably list it for $350, but, you know, it's just trying to find, like, maybe if I find like a really nice, but even the 7s are getting super expensive for these things. People are trying to find like ones that are kind of centered. By the way, I know people are going to say, oh, it has a tilt to it. They all have a tilt. And you're not going to find a perfectly centered Ozzie Smith. If you do, please let me know. Just like some of those, like a peachy cards, you're just not going to find perfectly centered 1979 Topps Ozzie Smith. The Dave Winfield, I believe, is another one. Like, you cannot find that thing centered at all. It's a special card when you do find them centered. But I've used this term in the past, probably going to trigger some people, and I call it a collector's grade. Now, what I mean by a collector's grade is it gets to a point of a certain grade where I don't feel like I want that card, right? So I showed you like a PSA 9 of Card Avalanche. Hopefully this video doesn't go long as Double D's grade reveal. I still have to finish 40 minutes of it. I did an hour during my commute, so I still have 40 minutes of that video to go. But this is what I kind of mean by collector's grade, right? I got these cards in a PSA 10, right? This card is like a $40, $50 card. In a 10, it's $500. I don't need a $500 example, right? So I will buy a card that's a 9 or an 8, right? Whatever is the best deal. And I just call that a collector's grade because who are the people buying these things that for 10s? Like I sold a ton of them, right? And if you love to collect 10s, good for you. You got the money to do it. Awesome. But for me, right, I could buy that card and 10 other ones just like it, or just have one $500 card. And that really doesn't interest me. And really, I graded all these. I know there's no difference between the 9s and the 10s, right? It's just whoever was grading that day. But this is kind of like a dilemma, right? Like, this is like borderline, like, do I want this or not? Well, the thing is even like a PSA 7 or SGC 7, they go for like $125 to $150. This is like double the price. You know, it's, if I could find a 7 that's just as nice, maybe I'll get it and just sell that. But if I got that card graded in a 9, you better believe I would sell it, right? Because the difference between an 8 and a 9 is 10 times the price, right? So eventually that 10x multiplier comes in on a lot of these vintage cards. And once it hits that, I won't even look at those cards, right? So I will look at an 8, a 7, and a 6 for the Ozzie Smith. I typically won't look lower than a 6 because that card is so common. But then there's cards, right, from the 1940s. I treat those completely different, right? I really kind of look at the nice 3s, right, for the 1940, like the 1948 Bowman, right? If I'm looking in there, like maybe like a 3 to a 4 range, that's what I'm kind of looking for. So for me, that is kind of the best bang for the buck. And that's what I kind of consider personally that taboo word, right, of collector's grade. And I think as collectors, I think what we just mean by that is we're just trying to find the nicest card possible at the best price possible, right? And some cards, right? And I had a bunch of 7s. They just didn't look good to me. And then I got that card, like, you know, I could deal with that little bit of a tilt because of the way that card presents. All right. So I think I kept you guys long enough. If anybody's even still here, thank you for watching. I have 699 subscribers. Who's going to be number 700? Click that bell. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Thank you for watching, everybody. And as always, keep on collecting.